Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We've got the Blueberry Slann for the Lizardmen on the field today as the Lizardmen face off against Norsca. We have Malverde leading the forces of the Lizardmen, and we have Ronin is leading the forces of Norsca. So for the Lizardmen forces, we do have the Slann Mage Priest of Light, bringing Briona's Time Warp and Fa's Protection. As his kit, we have the Bastiladon with the Revivification Crystal, giving a little bit of healing and can actually revive dead combatants. We do have the Bastiladon with Solar Engine as well as the Saurus Scar Veteran on his Carnosaur. For the troops of the Lizardmen, we do have a core of 3 Temple Guard units. On the flanks, we have a pair of Skink cohorts, and as well as a couple Cold One Riders securing the far flanks as well. But that will wrap things up. Very straightforward. Revivification Crystal will actually give it a little bit of healing for the Saurus Scar Veteran in absence of the Slann Mage Priest of Life. But we do also have some Pterodon Riders up in the sky. But for Norsca, we have a front line of Marauders, 2 of which being the Marauder champions will actually trade very well into the Temple Guard. We have a couple Fimir warriors with great weapons, great against those big monsters, but very dangerous to be up against the Temple Guard. And we have a lineup of Marauder hunters in the rear. We have 5 of those. Plenty of firepower, all anti-large missiles, and we also have a Fimir Baleothian of Shadows bringing the Pendulum, which will pretty much wreck a lot of different formations, especially the closely compacted Skink cohorts or anything once they finally get into engagement. And we have Wulfric the Wanderer with Seafang and Hunter of Champions. And that will wrap things up, and let's get things going as the armies get very close to approaching one another. Shots raining in from the Solar Bastiladon, firing into the Fimir warriors, clipping some units, but not doing a whole lot of damage. But now we have the mobility of the Lizardmen are starting to flank around. Definitely going to be their advantage in this matchup, as the Norscan forces have not decided to bring any mobility in a sense. We do have a banishment trying to clip some units, but they do miss their mark. The Skink cohort putting good pressure on these Marauder hunters with javelins. Javelins do get a little ahead of themselves. And definitely a good play here, keeping those Fimir warriors away, though these Fimir warriors are engaged with this Skink cohort. So that's a good play and a nice banishment going down, ripping through those Temple Guard. But otherwise, yeah, it's a good play keeping those Fimir warriors out of the fight against the Temple Guard. They are coming in now, it looks like, but it looks like that is going to be against kind of the weakened units. They don't want to be going against anything full health, as this unit of just regular Marauders is struggling a little bit to deal with the Temple Guard. We do have the Cold One Riders are closing in and getting some attacks off onto these Marauder hunters with javelins, as most of the javelins are now opening up, firing into this Saurus Scar Veteran and just doing a ton of damage. He's just melting away, taking so much, almost shattering off of those volleys. Now Wulfric is going to be free to engage the Bastiladon with Revivification. Now, if this Scar Veteran comes back and the Revivification Crystal survives, he does survive actually, so we'll see if Wulfric is able to chase him off. Otherwise, there isn't really any support. That Bastiladon trying to get in. The focus fire from the rest of the javelins doing a ton of damage to these Pterodon Riders, as Norsca takes a commanding early lead, though the mobility, these Cold One Riders are starting to really disrupt the back line, getting into those Marauder hunters with javelins. And we take a quick look at the back, as once again, actually, the Saurus Scar Veteran does rout just off of the charge from Wulfric. A point-blank shot actually missing from the Bastiladon. Wulfric could pretty much just turn and fire onto this Revivification Crystal Bastiladon, and not a whole lot that it can do. Now, this Scar Veteran definitely needs to try and avoid Wulfric at all costs, because if he does get too close, he will rout and shatter off of that third one. But now, if we take a look at the frontline engagement, the Cold One Riders are engaged with the Fimir warriors with great weapons. Not necessarily a good idea there. A Pendulum looks like can be coming down, trying to rip through these Temple Guard, doing quite a bit of damage. But they are engaged with these Fimir warriors, and they will be doing a good amount of damage themselves. Even though these Skink cohorts not really the best melee combatants, but they are against just regular Marauders. And with the assistance of the Temple Guard, will win this engagement. But yeah, we do have these Cold War Riders, which should be very easily chasing off these Fimir Warriors with great weapons, though I think the Javelins will have something to say about that, as they are firing in, potentially routing out this Cold One unit, as well as a couple other units. A Sea Fang, I hear, going through this unit of Temple Guard. But another unit of Fimir Warriors has routed, as the balance of power is now actually in the Lizardmen favor, despite the early advantage and the quick routing of the Scar Veteran and the damage onto the Reciprocation Crystal. But now, yeah, Wulfric is pretty much alone against the three monstrous units of the Lizardmen. Scar Veteran finally getting a little confident, but a Hunter of Champions does go down on him, though I think Wulfric is pretty much just going to use this advantage to run away. Hunter of Champions will be expiring fairly quickly, and he is taking quite a bit of damage over there. There is still quite a few Javelin units on the field, as this unit of Fimir Warriors has returned, as has that unit. But it looks like the mobility of the Lizardmen has kind of been compromised a bit, as these Cold One Riders are routing to these two Marauder units, one of which being the Marauder Champions. Another Pendulum going to go through this nice, juicy target here. Those Temple Guard taking a lot of damage. The Pendulums sure have been on point today. And now the Carnosaur is getting on top of these Fimir Warriors. They are low. They still will be able to do a good amount of damage to the Scar Veteran, but though the Javelins were what put that final nail in the coffin, sending him into the ground. Now the Javelins will be going into combat with the Bastillodon. And actually those Fimir, as long as they are with those Javelins, will actually do a decent amount of damage. Another volley will be coming in shortly from this unit of Javelins here, and I think that will do quite a good number, though it looks like we still have a full health Bastillodon on the Solar Engine with only maybe one shot left, and we still have this Slann Mage Priest of Light. So if we take a look at what we have left, Lizardmen are definitely a little bit on the back foot. Some of their mobility is coming back, though it looks like Wulfric has also paid the toll, as he is off going for that white line, and he will not be coming back. He is exceptionally low. But these Temple Guard are holding back the tide of Norsca, as they are dealing well with these two units of very haggard Marauder Champions. And we have a decent unit of Marauders here, looking to probably support the Fimir Warriors and the Fimir Balefiend against this Bastillodon Revivification Crystal, though it is starting to rout right now. I don't know if there's anything quick enough to be able to chase it off. But these Javelins are poking into the backs of these Cold One Riders, using up almost the last of their ammo. But yeah, the Javelins, they have been beaten quite a bit. I think maybe a little too heavy in that build, though actually it does look like Wulfric does come back. He is sitting at only 500 HP. But even just coming in with the charge is going to be something. There is no ranged support that the Lizardman can really use to poke him in. And even, I mean, there's not a whole lot of charge from the Slann wouldn't do anything. Potentially getting that Bastillodon to help with that engagement could cause Wulfric to rout again. It looks like the Fimir, low as they are going to be able to chase off that Revivification Crystal Bastillodon. And we do have some skink cohorts coming back to the fray, going to look to engage these Marauder Hunters with Javelins. A Frost Protection going down on the Slann Mage Priest, as the fire from these incoming Javelins is going to be negated to an extent, though it will still be taking some damage. I don't think that the Slann necessarily wants to be pushing forward here, though surprisingly does shatter these Marauder Champions, so maybe it is worth it. I mean, the melee Slann is a foe to be feared. It does surprisingly well and is a very tanky lord, despite being a caster, though if Wulfric is able to charge in, I could spell disaster for this Slann, as the Hunter of Champions goes down, reducing its speed, but surprisingly, Wulfric does rout as he approaches that Slann. I guess he knows what is best for him and not to tangle with the Blueberry on this day, though the Revivification, or not the Revivification, the Solar Engine Bastillodon is still stuck in engagement. Not a whole lot in the area that can do a whole lot of damage. It is just Marauders and Javelins, and those Javelins have used up all their ammo, so that Bastillodon should be able to tank that damage fairly well. Honestly, I think that Fimir Balefiend will probably be able to do more damage than those Marauders will, though I think just the number of units there will eventually cause that Bastillodon to rout. The Slann has actually shattered another javelin unit. See if it can actually push in and get these other champions and javelins out of the picture. Doing quite a bit, jibbing some of those units. But here comes Wulfric as he is wavering. I think Norsca really just needs to keep him just stationary for a bit, get some of that vigor back, and see if he can't stabilize that leadership. He does rout and shatter though, and that is unfortunate. As I said, I think if he had just been able to keep him stationary, he may have regained some of that. So it will go down to the Fimir Balefiend and come some of these Marauders with the javelins in support. But we'll see if that Slann Mage Priest is able to deal with things. Definitely, the Balefiend does need to get on top of the Slann. The Marauders should be able to push that Bastildon off, but this Slann is going to be quite the troublesome foe. But I think, yeah, the Fimir Balefiend with its magical attacks, which I do believe it has, it does an armor sundering, which will allow the rest of the units to do increasing damage to it itself, and getting a full surround off with these Marauder Hunters with javelins, I think it's going to be a very good thing to break the leadership of the Slann, as it does look to be slowly faltering. And there isn't really anything else in the surrounding area. The Bastildon could potentially come back, as the Great Shield of the Old Ones is being dropped down to try and stabilize the Slann as much as possible. And yeah, I don't think if that Bastildon had been able to come back there, potentially could have dealt with that blob. But yeah, otherwise those two were separated long enough for the leadership to be broken individually, and that is what sealed it for the Lizardmen on this day. Very close match. The pendulums were definitely on point for the Fimir Balefiend. I think Wulfric definitely got ahead of himself, though, trying to chase after that Saurus Scar Veteran. And even though that Saurus Scar Veteran did get ahead of himself with the mass amount of javelins, in my opinion, probably a little on the heavy side for the javelins. Yes, they're able to do a ton of anti-large damage if they're able to focus fire. But I think having that many of them really kind of made it so they couldn't have as much coverage in other terms, and the lack of mobility, I think, was a fault for Norsca. And even though they did have the lack of mobility in this matchup, Lizardmen didn't quite conserve their mobility as they could have. The Pterodons really didn't do a whole lot, and the Coldwind Riders needed to be conserved and to take advantage of that mobility that they had monopolized. I know the Fimir Warriors had both routed, and had those Coldwind Riders been fresh as a daisy, then they could have been able to chase them off, and I think we would have seen a different outcome had they been able to do that. Get some nice rear charges in the late game. There's really no need for them to have lost so many units so early, but that will be our game today, and I hope you all enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good one.